Reigen Arataka, who claims to be an exorcist, but is actually a fraud, unintentionally comes across an evil spirit and attempts to exorcise it. However, his attempts with table salt prove ineffective, only irritating the spirit. To resolve the situation, Reigen brings in Shigeo Kageyama, also known as Mob, a middle schooler with powerful psychic abilities. With Mob's psychokinetic powers, the spirit is successfully banished. Later on, Reigen is hired to deal with evil spirits haunting a tunnel. Once again, he deceives Mob into doing most of the work. The ghost of a deceased biker gang leader warns them about a stronger monster lurking deeper in the tunnel and pleads with them not to confront it. Despite the warning, Mob bravely takes down the formidable creature. As a result, the leader and his gang spirits find peace and move on to the afterlife. The telepathy club at Mob's school faces a disbandment threat due to a lack of members meeting the minimum requirement. In a desperate attempt to save the club, they try persuading other students to join and even bring Mob to the club room for convincing. However, the club's leader, Tome Kurata, argues with Reigen on the phone, as Reigen believes Mob should prioritize his job over the club. Subsequently, Reigen and Mob take on a contract to exorcise a spirit at a private all-girls high school. In an attempt to infiltrate the school, they both cross-dress. However, Reigen gets stopped by security, leaving Mob to meet the clients, a pair of schoolgirls, on his own. The clients lead him around the school until he encounters the large ghost of a deceased schoolboy observing basketball practice. After successfully defeating the ghost, it implores him to cherish his youth before vanishing. The following day, the student council at Mob's school threatens to give the telepathy club's room to the newly formed Body Improvement Club, just as Mob is considering joining. This prompts a flashback where Mob recalls his lack of physical abilities, leading him to make the decision of joining the Body Improvement Club instead. During a session at the Body Improvement Club, Mob collapses and the members leave him in the club room to recover. The telepathy club, now using the room to store bodybuilding equipment, makes a remark that even if Mob improves his physique, he will never be popular. Upset by the comment, Mob encounters a woman wearing a smiling mask on his way home. She offers to help him gain popularity and leads him to an underground meeting place where a cult called LOL worships a man with the ability to make others laugh and smile. In the meeting area, Mezuto Ichi, a reporter from Mob's school, gets forcefully converted to the cult's beliefs, but even the cult leader, Dimple, fails to convert Mob. It is revealed that Dimple is a powerful spirit possessing a man, and he tries to kill Mob. The immense strain prompts Mob to reach 100% of his psychic power and triggers an explosion of tremendous energy that exorcises Dimple, liberating the cult's converts. Delinquents from Mob's school, Salt Middle School, are engaged in a turf war with their rivals from Black Vinegar Middle School. When the rival delinquents find themselves unable to secure victory, they call upon their leader, Teruki Teru Hanazawa. Despite his unimposing physical appearance, Teru effortlessly defeats the Salt delinquents. Seeking revenge, the delinquent leader, Tenga Onigawara, tries to persuade the Body Improvement Club to join the turf war. However, upon their refusal, he devises a scheme to have Mob kidnapped by the rival school, intending to compel the Body Improvement Club to attack their adversaries. Meanwhile, throughout the day, Mob has been haunted by the weakened spirit of Dimple, who claims to have changed for the better. Following the Salt delinquents' plan, Mob gets captured by the Black Vinegar delinquents, but resists using his powers to escape despite Dimple's encouragement. The members of the Body Improvement Club succeed in defeating the army of delinquents while attempting to rescue Mob. However, when Teru enters the scene, they find themselves unable to overcome his psychic abilities, which he demonstrates with great prowess. Upon recognizing Mob's psychic abilities, Teru makes an attempt to coerce him into a psychic duel by launching an attack. However, Mob firmly declines, adhering to his principles of never using psychic powers against another human being, despite facing increasingly violent assaults. Dimple steps in to defend Mob, but Teru swiftly exorcises the spirit. As the confrontation progresses within the school, Teru's mental state starts to deteriorate. Mob defends himself by deflecting Teru's knives, which inadvertently leads to the shearing of Teru's hair. Teru's frustration intensifies, and his sanity wavers. During this, Mob has a revelation, Both he and Teru lack self-confidence and are overly reliant on their psychic powers. Teru, having frequently used his abilities to gain popularity and establish superiority in school, now suffers from a chosen one complex. Teru forcefully chokes Mob against a wall, but as Mob's restraint weakens, he starts to lose consciousness due to the asphyxiation. However, before reaching 100% power, Mob unconsciously enters his percent form, unleashing immense power. He tears apart the school and hurls debris at a vulnerable Teru, who is sent flying into the sky. Apologizing and accepting Mob's ideals, Teru experiences a change of heart. In the aftermath of the encounter, Mob realizes that he has violated his own principles by using his powers against another person. This realization brings about a profound sense of sadness, 100% sadness. To make amends, Mob employs his powers to rebuild the school. Following the incident at Black Vinegar Middle School, rumors about Mob's abilities and his confrontation with Teru spread throughout the entire town. Mob's brother, Ritsu Kageyama, finds himself constantly followed by various individuals intrigued by him and his brother's powers. Ritsu is unhappy with this attention as he is envious of his own lack of ESP abilities. Tome, the leader of the telepathy club, becomes curious about the psychic battle and attempts to persuade Mob to publicly identify other espers. Meanwhile, Shinji Kimuro, the student council president of Salt Middle School, confides in Ritsu, seeking his help in framing the local gang leader, Tenga Onigawara, for theft and lewd behavior. Later, Ritsu visits the Awakening Lab, a psychic research institute, where he finds that all the subjects possess minimal and weak ESP abilities. However, unbeknownst to Ritsu, he inadvertently bends a spoon using psychic power during his visit. Later, he spots the ghost of Dimple outside his house, which reveals his latent psychic capabilities. As news of white tea poison reaches thugs from rival middle school gangs, they set out to take him down. Simultaneously, Ritsu comes across Dimple and begins a gradual journey of discovering and enhancing his psychic abilities. Empowered by his newfound skills, Ritsu holds Kimuro accountable for his questionable actions. Meanwhile, Mob encounters two con artists who try to scam him over a supposedly expensive vase he broke. Luckily, Reigen steps in and outsmarts the con artists, saving Mob from their scheme. With Dimple as his mentor, Ritsu's psychic powers grow, leading to a sense of superiority. Despite Dimple's cautionary words, Ritsu decides to confront Teru and engage in a battle. However, Teru's experience and already potent psychic abilities prove to be overwhelming, forcing Ritsu to flee. Subsequently, Ritsu faces off with other gang members in an alley and effortlessly subdues them with his psychic prowess. It is during this confrontation that Mob arrives on the scene. Teru leads Mob to Ritsu and the middle school thugs. Mob is delighted to witness Ritsu's development of psychic powers. However, Ritsu, still reveling in his newfound abilities, attempts to sever ties with Mob. Surprisingly, Mob protects him by apologizing to the thugs and groveling on his behalf. At this moment, an adult esper known as Kadri Koyama intervenes, mistaking Ritsu for Mob and trying to abduct him. In the ensuing struggle, Ritsu gets injured, prompting Mob to unleash his full power and overwhelm Koyama. Nevertheless, Koyama uses a cursed spray to incapacitate Mob and escapes with Ritsu. Simultaneously, Yusuke Sakurai, another adult esper working with Koyama, infiltrates the Awakening Lab and abducts the subjects. Teru and Dimple come to Mob's rescue, taking him to Teru's apartment to recover. Teru reveals to Mob and Dimple that Ritsu was taken by Claw, a criminal organization of espers with plans of world domination. Claw kidnaps young adolescent espers to brainwash them for their malevolent schemes. Dimple informs Mob and Teru that Koyama might have discovered information about the Kageyama brothers from the Awakening Lab. The trio heads to the lab to question its founder, Kenji Mitsura, about the incident. Meanwhile, Koyama and Sakurai transport Ritsu and the Awakening subjects to a Claw hideout known as the 7th Division. Claw agent Terada overhears from Sakurai and Koyama that, despite capturing several children, they failed to apprehend Mob. He decides to take matters into his own hands and attempts to kill Mob, but Teruki, Mob, and Mitsura catch him, forcing Terada to surrender all the information. Ritsu and the other Awakening kids remain confined in a cell and face interrogation. When Ritsu pleads that the kids are powerless, Muto takes Kaito and seemingly kills him, giving the children an ultimatum: reveal their powers or suffer the same fate. Mob and Teruki bring Terada to the gang's hideout, where the higher-ups, known as the Scars, are gathered for a meeting. The head informs them that the boss might summon some of them to headquarters. Terada manages to escape and attacks Mob and Teruki but is swiftly defeated by Mob. The captive kids eventually realize that Kaito is alive and that they were under the influence of Muto's hypnotism. They begin planning an escape just as Mob and Teruki initiate an infiltration, but their presence is detected by the Scars. Kageyama intervenes to stop them, but Mob easily overpowers him, leading to a confrontation with the rest of the Scars. The children successfully reunite with Kaito and make an attempt to escape. Dimple, now possessing one of the underlings, manages to hinder a few of them until Mataso confronts him. One of the underlings informs Teruki that the kids have escaped on their own, leading to a confrontation with Miyagawa. However, Miyagawa is deceived as the underling turns his powers against him, only to be defeated by the combined efforts of Muto and Sakurai. Mob finds himself surrounded by Mukei's dolls but breaks free from their control, only to face an enraged Tsuchiya. She notices that Mob is holding back because she is a woman and urges him not to do so if they are to engage in a full-out fight. Ultimately, Mob defeats both Tsuchiya and Takuchi. While escaping, the kids encounter a boy named Sho, and Ritsu advises them to flee without him. Later, Mob discovers Ritsu beaten and unconscious. Muto attempts to further manipulate Ritsu's psyche, but Mob enters a state of 100% rejection, disrupting Muto's mind and causing both of them to lose consciousness. Dimple tries to deceive Matsuo but ends up being captured by him instead. Tracing Mob's cell phone, Reigen arrives at the 7th Division. The claw lackeys guarding the entrance initially try to stop him, but later permit his entry, mistaking him for the leader of Claw. Unintentionally benefiting from this misconception, Reigen helps the awakening subjects escape and attempts to persuade the lackeys to reconsider their allegiance. Meanwhile, Mob, Teru, and Ritsu find themselves trapped in a cursed room that suppresses their psychic abilities. Eventually, Reigen arrives and manages to free the 3 young espers. As they try to leave, they are confronted by 7th Division leader Ishiguro and the remaining 3 Scars, Sakurai, Matsuo, and Muraki. Reigen successfully convinces the lackeys to abandon Claw and seek better paths for themselves. However, he later discovers that Mob reluctantly broke his promise to refrain from using psychic powers against people. While Teru and Ritsu engage in battles against the Scars, Mob faces a dilemma of whether to use his powers to save his friends or follow Reigen's advice to escape. On the brink of going 100% with murderous intent, Reigen intervenes and snaps Mob out of it. He advises Mob that the path he is choosing will lead to suffering and that it's acceptable to prioritize self-preservation. A brief flashback reveals how a young Mob first encountered Reigen, seeking help in controlling his burgeoning psychic abilities. In a critical moment, Sakurai appears behind Reigen and attacks him in front of Mob, shocking and pushing Mob to reach 100%. After Sakurai's attack, Reigen miraculously remains unharmed and proceeds to confront the Scars. Surprisingly, their psychic attacks have no effect on him. It is revealed that Reigen's wise words to Mob altered the course of his psychic energy. Subconsciously, Mob directed his psychic energy into Reigen, effectively running away from the situation, causing Reigen's psychic energy to surge to 1000% with gratitude. Taking down Ishiguro, Reigen scolds the Scars for their delusions of grandeur, reminding them that despite their psychic powers, they are still human. This reality check brings Sakurai and Muraki back to their senses. However, Ishiguro remains resolute in his belief that psychics are an elite group superior to others and deserving of worship. In response, Mob counters Ishiguro by pointing out that having psychic powers doesn't automatically make someone popular. This provocation causes Ishiguro to snap and gather psychic energy to obliterate the 7th Division, along with everyone inside. Unfortunately, Reigen loses Mob's psychic energy before he can defeat Ishiguro. Unexpectedly, Sho appears and knocks out Ishiguro, expressing his disappointment in Mob. Sho discloses that he was sent by his father, the leader of Claw, to oversee the development of the 7th Division before departing. Meanwhile, Dimple finally escapes from Matsuo's evil spirit jar and incapacitates him. As the fight concludes, Mob Reigen, Ritsu, Teru, and Dimple resume their normal lives. In the future, they embark on an adventure to hunt down a mythical Takenoko, but Reigen ends up gathering mushrooms instead. Mob exorcises a spirit that could have been a Takenoko, but Reigen dismisses the existence of such creatures.
I hope you liked the recap. If so, don't forget to subscribe and like it.